The crystal glasses clinked as my sister Emma raised her champagne, her diamond bracelet catching the light. To another record year at Hammond Industries, she announced proudly. Our family erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the marble-floored dining room of my parents' mansion. I sat quietly, nursing my coffee, watching the scene unfold like a well-rehearsed play. Every year, the family reunion doubled as a celebration of Hammond Industries' success. The company my grandfather built, the one my father now ran, and the one my sister was being groomed to inherit. Speaking of success, Emma turned to me, her smile sharp as a paper cut. "How's the job hunt going, Olivia?" Still temping at that startup. The room grew quiet. All eyes turned to me, my father's disappointed frown, my mother's practiced look of concern, my uncle's barely concealed smirk. I could feel their judgment like a physical weight. "I'm doing fine," I replied evenly, taking another sip of coffee. "Fine?" Emma laughed. "You're 32, living in a rented apartment, while the rest of us," she gestured around the room at our successful family members. "Even cousin David just made you your partner at his law firm." I didn't remind them that I'd chosen to leave Hammond Industries 3 years ago. Didn't mention the countless nights I'd spent building something of my own, away from their suffocating expectations and rigid rules. "You know," my father chimed in, swirling his scotch, "there's still a position available in accounts receivable. Entry level, of course, but it's a start." "Thank you," I said quietly, "but I'm good where I am." Emma snorted. "Good. Liv, you can barely afford rent in that shabby neighborhood. When are you going to grow up and accept that you need our help?" I checked my phone discreetly. 9:47 p.m. In less than 12 hours, the billboard on Fifth Avenue would be unveiled. The one announcing Aurora Tech's acquisition of the Riverside complex, Hammond Industries' primary office location. They didn't know that Aurora Tech was my company, built from the ground up after I left their precious family empire. "Remember when you thought you could revolutionize our tech department?" Emma continued, clearly enjoying her audience. "What was it you said? The future is in artificial intelligence and automated systems." Our father laughed. And when we explained that Hammond Industries doesn't chase trendy fads, she stormed out like a teenager. I hadn't stormed out. I'd walked away calmly after they rejected my proposal for the 3rd time, taking my patents and research with me. Patents that were now worth more than their entire tech division. "At least take the accounts position," my mother pleaded. "The family needs to maintain its image. What will people think?" I stood up slowly, smoothing my simple black dress. Valentino, though they assumed it was off the rack. I should head home. Early morning tomorrow. "Oh, right." Emma smirked. "Temp work calls bright and early." As I walked toward the door, my uncle called out, "Don't forget, Olivia. Family is all you've got. Don't throw it away over pride." I turned back one last time, taking in their faces, memorizing this moment. "You're right, Uncle Jack. Family is important. That's why I never forget anything." Emma rolled her eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll see tomorrow," I said softly. "Check the news around 9, especially the business section." My father frowned. "What are you talking about?" But I was already walking out, my heels clicking against the marble floor. In my car, a modest Toyota they loved to mock, I pulled up the final acquisition papers on my phone. Aurora Tech had just completed its largest purchase to date, the entire Riverside complex, including all 16 floors currently leased to Hammond Industries. Their lease was up for renewal next month. And I, their new landlord, had other plans for the space. I drove home to my shabby apartment, actually the penthouse of a building I owned under a separate LLC. Tomorrow, everything would change. Not because I wanted revenge, but because sometimes the only way to make people see you is to become impossible to ignore. As I parked in my private garage, my phone buzzed. A text from my assistant. Billboard installation complete. All set for tomorrow's unveiling. I smiled, remembering Emma's words from earlier. Poor little sister, still living paycheck to paycheck. If only they knew that while they were laughing, I was building an empire that would make Hammond Industries look like a corner store. Tomorrow, they wouldn't be laughing anymore. They'd be calling their lawyers. I woke up early the next morning, not from anxiety, but from a calm sense of anticipation. My phone was already buzzing with notifications, emails from board members, text messages from my executive team, and several missed calls from the PR department. Today wasn't just about the billboard or the building. It was about 3 years of careful planning finally coming to fruition. As I made my morning coffee in my state-of-the-art kitchen, I thought back to the day I left Hammond Industries. I had presented my AI development proposal one last time, complete with market projections and potential revenue streams. My father had barely glanced at it. "Olivia," he'd said, sighing like I was still a child bringing him a crayon drawing. "Hammond Industries has thrived for 40 years because we stick to what works. We're not going to risk our reputation on your experiments." Emma had been there too, sitting in her pristine corner office, the one that should have been mine, as the eldest daughter. "Face it, Liv," she'd smirked. "You're not cut out for this world. Some people are leaders, others are, well, you know." I'd walked out that day with nothing but my research and my determination. What they didn't know was that I'd already secured private funding from venture capitalists who actually understood the potential of AI integration in corporate systems. 3 patents, and 2 years later, Aurora Tech was born. My phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus, my head of operations. "News vans already setting up on 5th Avenue. You should see the crowd." I walked to my floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city I'd quietly been conquering piece by piece. The morning sun was just hitting the skyscrapers, including the Hammond Industries building, my building now. Another text came through, this time from my sister. "What the hell did you mean about checking the news? Are you trying to be dramatic?" I didn't respond. Instead, I dressed carefully in a tailored white Alexander McQueen suit. No more hiding behind modest clothes. Today, I would look the part of who I truly was. At 8:45 a.m., my private elevator opened directly into my underground garage where James, my driver, waited beside a Rolls-Royce Ghost, a far cry from the Toyota my family had seen last night. "Good morning, Miss Hammond," he said, opening the door. "Big day." "Indeed it is, James." I settled into the leather seats, opening my laptop to review the press release one last time. Aurora Tech acquires Riverside Complex in historic $2.8 billion deal. CEO Olivia Hammond announces major expansion. As we drove toward 5th Avenue, my phone started ringing. Emma again, then my father, then Uncle Jack. I let them all go to voicemail. At 8:57 a.m., we pulled up to the crowd gathered around the covered billboard. News reporters were already doing their morning segments, speculating about the mysterious Aurora Tech and its reclusive CEO. I stepped out of the car, and the whispers started immediately. Most had never seen me before. I'd kept my identity private until now, letting my work speak for itself. The clicking of cameras intensified as I walked toward the small stage that had been set up. At exactly 9:00 a.m., my phone exploded with notifications. The press release had just gone live across all major business networks. "Ms. Hammond," reporters called out, "is it true you're the founder of Aurora Tech? Are you related to the Hammond Industries family? What are your plans for the Riverside complex?" Before I could respond, a commotion broke out at the edge of the crowd. I turned to see my father pushing through, his face red with fury, Emma right behind him. They froze when they saw me on stage, their expressions shifting from anger to disbelief. I stepped up to the microphone, my voice carrying clearly across the now silent crowd. "Good morning," I said, my eyes meeting my father's shocked stare. "I'm Olivia Hammond, CEO of Aurora Tech. And yes, those Hammond Industries billboards you've seen for 40 years. I nodded to my team, and the cover dropped, revealing Aurora Tech's sleek logo and my face 40 feet high above Fifth Avenue. They're about to change. The cameras went wild. Emma's face had gone pale. And my father, for the first time in my life, looked at me with something other than disappointment. He looked afraid. The chaos that followed the billboard unveiling was exactly what I had anticipated. As camera flashes lit up the morning air, I maintained my composure, standing tall at the podium while my family struggled to process what was happening. "Aurora Tech," I continued, my voice carrying over the murmurs, "has not only acquired the Riverside complex, but will be implementing our AI-driven smart building technology across all 60 floors. I paused, letting my next words land deliberately. "Current tenants will be notified of lease updates within the next 24 hours. My father pushed forward, his face a storm of emotions. "Olivia," he hissed, trying to keep his voice down despite his obvious rage. "What do you think you're doing?" I ignored him, continuing my prepared statement. "This acquisition marks the beginning of Aurora Tech's expansion into commercial real estate automation, a vision that some said was impossible." My eyes met Emma's, who was frantically typing on her phone. Sometimes the future arrives sooner than expected. As I stepped away from the podium, reporters shouted questions. "Ms. Hammond, did your family know about Aurora Tech? Was this acquisition a hostile takeover? Will Hammond Industries be evicted from the complex?" My PR team handled the press while I walked calmly toward my waiting car. My father grabbed my arm, his grip tight, but trembling. "You can't do this," he growled. "That building has been Hammond Industries' headquarters for 30 years. I gently removed his hand. "Actually, I can. Your lease expires in exactly 28 days. Check your contract." Emma rushed up, her designer heels clicking frantically on the pavement. "This is insane. You're trying to destroy everything our family built." "No," I replied softly. "I'm showing you everything you refuse to build." I turned to my father. "Remember that AI proposal you dismissed? The one you called a trendy fad? Aurora Tech's market valuation hit $12 billion last quarter. That's 3 times Hammond Industries' worth." His face went ashen. "12 billion? The meeting to discuss your lease renewal is at 2 p.m. today," I said, checking my watch. "Don't be late. I have other potential tenants interested in the space." As I slid into my car, Emma banged on the window. "You can't just walk away. We're family." I lowered the window slightly. "Funny. That's exactly what I said 3 years ago when you all laughed me out of the building." I nodded to James. "That will be all." Back at Aurora Tech's headquarters, a sleek glass tower I'd purchased last year. My executive team was waiting in the conference room. The wall-mounted screens displayed real-time news coverage of the morning's events, along with Hammond Industries' plummeting stock price. Marcus, my COO, handed me a tablet. Their board called an emergency meeting. Apparently, your father never told them about your AI proposal. Now they're questioning his judgment. I wasn't surprised. My father had always protected Emma, grooming her for leadership while dismissing my innovations. Now his bias would cost him. There's more, Sarah, my head of legal, added. We've received calls from 3 other major tech firms. They want to discuss partnerships now that Aurora's gone public. I sat at the head of the table, remembering all the times my family had made me feel small for daring to think differently. What's the status on Project Phoenix? Marcus grinned. Ready to launch whenever you give the word. It'll make today's news look like a warm-up. Project Phoenix was what I'd been building toward all along. The Riverside complex was just the beginning. Aurora Tech had spent the last year quietly acquiring key properties and patents across the country. Properties that Hammond Industries depended on without even knowing it. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Please, Olivia. Let's talk about this. Your father's blood pressure. I set the phone aside. They'd had 3 years to talk. 3 years to acknowledge that their oldest daughter might actually know what she was doing. Instead, they'd chosen mockery and exclusion. Miss Hammond, my assistant, called from the door. Your father and sister are in the lobby with their lawyers. They're demanding to see you. I smiled, pressing a button that activated the smart glass walls, turning them from transparent to opaque. Let them wait. We have a lease renewal meeting to prepare for. Marcus cleared his throat. About that meeting, are you really planning to evict them? No, I said, pulling up a document on my tablet. I'm planning to teach them the difference between ownership and control. I projected the document onto the main screen. A detailed proposal for Hammond Industries' digital transformation, complete with AI integration and automated systems. They can keep their offices, but only if they're willing to evolve. And if they refuse? Sarah asked. I thought of Emma's smirk at last night's reunion, of my father's dismissive waves, of all the family dinners where I was the cautionary tale. Then they'll learn what it feels like to be on the outside looking in. The hours before the 2 p.m. meeting crawled by with calculated precision. I reviewed financial reports, answered urgent emails, and watched as speculation about Aurora Tech dominated every business channel. The story was irresistible. Daughter spurned by family business becomes tech billionaire, buys family's headquarters. At 1:45 p.m., my assistant buzzed in. Your father's legal team has arrived. They're bringing Howard Matthews from Sterling and Reed. I almost laughed. Howard Matthews, the same lawyer who'd helped my father restructure Hammond Industries to ensure Emma's path to leadership while minimizing my role. He probably drafted the very documents that had pushed me out. Send them to conference room A, I replied. And Sarah? Make sure the AI demonstration is ready. I stood in my private bathroom, checking my reflection. The woman in the mirror wasn't the same person they'd mocked at last night's reunion. Gone was the careful attempt to blend in. Instead, I saw someone who had nothing left to prove and everything to show. At exactly 2 p.m., I walked into the conference room. The tension was palpable. My father sat at one end of the table, his face tight with controlled anger. Emma beside him, her usual confidence replaced by nervous energy. Howard Matthews and 2 other lawyers flanked them like expensive guards. Thank you for coming, I said, taking my seat. Sarah and Marcus sat on either side of me, tablets ready. Shall we begin? Howard Matthews cleared his throat. Ms. Hammond, before we proceed, your father would like to speak. I gestured gracefully. Of course. My father leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. Whatever game you're playing, Olivia, it ends now. You've made your point. You're successful. Congratulations. But this vindictive display. This isn't how family behaves. Interesting, I replied, opening my laptop. Let's talk about how family behaves. Sarah, would you pull up the Hammond Industries board minutes from March 2020? Sarah projected the document onto the wall screen. There, in crisp black and white, was the transcript of the meeting where my AI proposal had been discussed. After I'd left the room, Emma's voice. We can't let her implement this. If it succeeds, she'll have too much control. My father. Agreed. The board votes to reject the proposal and begin transitioning Olivia to a non-essential role. The color drained from Emma's face. How did you get those minutes? I have an excellent legal team, I replied smoothly. But let's focus on the present. Your lease expires in 28 days. I have a proposal that could benefit both companies. Howard Matthews jumped in. Any attempt to evict Hammond Industries would be met with immediate legal action. The publicity alone would be fascinating, I cut in, especially when the press learns how Hammond Industries systematically suppressed innovative technology to maintain family control. I turned to my father. But I'm not here to destroy what grandfather built. I'm here to save it. Marcus distributed tablets to everyone at the table. What you're looking at, he explained, is a comprehensive integration proposal. Aurora Tech's AI systems would modernize Hammond Industries' entire operation. Projected efficiency increase, 47%. Cost reduction, 35%. The catch, Emma said, scrolling through the document. What's the catch? Aurora Tech would manage all technological implementation, I replied, and I would join Hammond Industries board not as your employee, but as a major technology partner. My father's hand tightened on the tablet. And if we refuse? I stood, walking to the window that overlooked the city. Then you have 28 days to relocate 40 years of business operations. Your choice. This is blackmail, Emma snapped. No, I turned back to face them. This is business. The same business you taught me, remember? Some people are leaders, others are, well, you know. Howard Matthews was whispering urgently to my father, who looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour. Emma was still scrolling through the proposal, her expression shifting from anger to something else, recognition. The AI system, she said slowly. This is what you tried to show us 3 years ago, isn't it? But it's more advanced now. Much more, I confirmed. Aurora Tech holds 17 patents in artificial intelligence and automated systems. We're not just a real estate company. We're the future you refuse to see. My father stood abruptly. We need time to review this with our board. You have until 5 p.m. tomorrow, I replied. After that, I start entertaining other offers for the space. As they gathered their things, Emma lingered behind. Why didn't you tell us? About Aurora Tech? About everything? I looked at my sister, really looked at her, seeing not the favorite child who had tormented me, but someone who might finally understand what she'd missed. Would you have believed me? I asked softly. Or would it have been another family dinner joke? She had no answer for that. After they left, Marcus turned to me. Think they'll accept? I walked back to my desk, picking up a framed photo I kept hidden in the drawer. my grandfather on the day he founded Hammond Industries, young and full of dreams about building something that would last. They don't have a choice, I replied, and that's exactly what they need to understand. The next 24 hours unfolded like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Hammond Industries stock had dropped 18% by closing bell, while Aurora Tech's valuation soared. My phone was flooded with messages from relatives who had suddenly remembered my existence, cousins offering congratulations, aunts claiming they'd always believed in me, uncles wanting to discuss investment opportunities. I ignored them all. At my penthouse that evening, I sat on my terrace overlooking the city lights, a glass of wine in hand. My mother had tried to visit earlier, bringing my favorite childhood dessert like it could sweeten the bitter pills I'd forced them to swallow. I just don't understand, she'd said, standing in my marble foyer, taking in the obvious wealth she'd never noticed before. Why did you pretend to struggle? Why let us think you were less? Because, I'd replied, not inviting her further in, you needed to show me who you really were when you thought I had nothing. Now, as midnight approached, my phone lit up with a text from Emma. Can we talk? Just us. Please. I considered ignoring it, but something in me, maybe the last remnant of the sister I used to be, made me reply. The cafe on 73rd, 7 a.m. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I kept thinking about the day grandfather had handed over control to my father, how proud he'd been, how he'd always told us that Hammond Industries wasn't just a company, it was a legacy. Take care of it, he'd said, and take care of each other. We'd failed on both counts. The cafe was empty when I arrived, except for Emma sitting in a corner booth. No designer bag, no power suit, just jeans and a sweater like when we were young. She looked tired, human. You look different, she said as I sat down. I look like myself, I corrected. You're just seeing me for the first time. She stared into her coffee. The board met until midnight. They want to accept your proposal. Dad fought it, but after they saw the projected numbers, she looked up at me. You're not just successful, are you? You're brilliant. I always was, I said quietly. You all just decided I wasn't. Because you were different, she admitted. You saw things we couldn't. It scared Dad. It scared me. She pulled out her phone, showing me an article about Aurora Tech's rise. 17 patents? A revolutionary AI system. While we were mocking you at family dinners, you were building an empire. Now you know how it feels, I said, to discover your assumptions about someone were completely wrong. Tears filled her eyes. I was awful to you. We all were. And you just took it. Planned. Built. Why? I leaned back, remembering all the nights I'd worked alone, all the small victories I couldn't share, all the times I'd wanted to prove them wrong but waited until the proof was undeniable. Because success isn't about proving people wrong, I said finally. It's about proving yourself right. The board meets at 10, she said. They're going to accept your proposal, but they want changes. They want you more involved, not just as a technology partner. They want, she hesitated. What? They want you to co-lead Hammond Industries with me. Dad stepping down. I felt a strange tightness in my chest. And how do you feel about that? Terrified, she admitted, but also relieved. You were always better at seeing the future. I was just better at playing the game Dad created. My phone buzzed, a reminder about the 5 p.m. deadline. The game's changed, I said, standing. The question is, Are you ready to learn new rules? She stood too, squaring her shoulders. Teach me. Not as my superior, but as my sister. Please? I studied her face, searching for the mocking smirk, the hidden agenda, but found only sincerity and something else. Respect. The board meeting's in 2 hours, I said. Come to my office first. There's something you need to see. In my office, I showed her Project Phoenix, Aurora Tech's complete vision for the future of corporate automation. Her eyes widened as she understood the scale of what I'd built. This isn't just about Hammond Industries, is it? She whispered. You're changing everything. No, I corrected her. We are, if you're ready. She looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. I am. And Liv, I'm sorry. For everything. I nodded, turning to the window. Below, workers were installing the new Aurora Tech logo on what had been Hammond Industries' building for 4 decades. Change wasn't always comfortable, but it was always necessary. The past is done, I said. Let's build something new, together. As we walked into the board meeting 2 hours later, side by side instead of in competition, I thought about last night's family reunion. How they laughed at my supposed failures. How they dismissed my potential. But success, real success, isn't about revenge. It's about evolution. About becoming so undeniably excellent that those who doubted you have no choice but to see what they missed. And sometimes, if you're patient enough, smart enough, and strong enough, you don't just prove them wrong. You help them become better.